G'day and welcome back. Today I've got a Healing radio. It's a model 448E. I'm not exactly sure of the year. It looks kind of 30s, mid-late 30s, something like that. I only have the chassis, I don't have the cabinet. It's a console model and has a wooden cabinet. This belongs to the same chap that bought in the Philco radio I did a few weeks ago. So he dropped two radios off and this is the other one. He just wants it going again and he wants to put it in the cabinet. He's restored the cabinet, it looks really good. So he just wants it cleaned up a little bit, get it working, and he also wants me to try and put Bluetooth on, so we'll try and do that later. This has a plastic cover that goes over the dial. There's a line here to pick up the stations. This one's pretty poor condition, but it also has a light up here, and it shines through these station numbers at the top here, and it's projected out the front of the radio, so it's called a projectograph. Here's my Music Masters. This also has the projectograph on the top. Now the owners had a new one of these made up, and this is it here. So he's had a new disc made up and it's got the line on it, and this is the telephone dial style they had in the 30s. So I might see if I can try and recreate that black band at the top and get the projectograph working again. This plastic disc is driven by the tuning shaft down the bottom. It has a rubber drive, so I've got to try and rebuild that as well. Has a bit of damage here where the lights have burnt through the plastic, whatever it is, the dial face. That's out of sight, so I don't think that'll matter. I think it's all here. I'll spin it around, we'll have a look at the back. Alright, here's the back. That looks like a 6V6. Oh no, it's a 42. And there's an 80 valve there that's missing. That's the rectifier. It's got the IF amplifier valve there and a smoothing capacitor. I'm just looking at this valve over here, and it says it's an EK something, EK2 I think. I think an EK2 is a P-base valve, a side contact valve. It says to be an EK2G. Just taking him out. This an EK2 is, or an EK2G is painted red normally. Yeah, it's actually a 6A8G, and I think the pinout's the same on these, but you need to change some resistors to get it to work properly. So I don't know if they've done that. I'll have to check to see if they've done any work or just shoved a 6A8 in there. Now there's the model number 448E. That's the patent sticker, and that's got an E on it. And I think from memory E is about 1938. I think that's the shortwave light. All the rubber's perished on it. But the wire looks alright. That's quite supple. That's pretty good. Okay, I'll flip it over. We'll have a look underneath. It's pretty much what you would expect. Some paper caps there, another one there. I can see a couple in there. I think they're paper. That one's an electrolytic. That one's an electrolytic. That's 8 microfarads. Where's the other one? There's the old, it's been disconnected. That's the one mounted on the top, and somebody's replaced that with, I assume, that cap there. So that'll be the second electrolytic in the filter stage. I better fire up my barbecue again. I've got more capacitors inside tins. That appears to say 8x8 microfarad, 500 volts or peak voltage. And this one I can't quite read. Oh no, this says 8 microfarad at 350. So that's 2 in there and 1 more in there. I assume they're electrolytic, or they may not be. Well, 8 microfarad, you'd think they would. So down here there's a couple of more capacitors hidden in there. They're going to be fun to get to. It looks pretty straightforward. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 capacitors. So there's quite a few in there to do. As my usual thing, I would like to see what these radios do after all these years. So I'm going to put some power on it. The coupling capacitor's down here somewhere. I'll just monitor that voltage, I think. I've put a number 80 rectifier valve in, the speaker's connected, and I've put an antenna on, and I've also connected my meter to the grid of the number 42 output valve, so I just monitor that, make sure it doesn't go above 0. Alright, so I'll put some power on. I've got it on dim bulb. Ooh, look at that go. Better turn that off. Okay, doesn't like that, does it? I'll see if I've got another 80 valve. I've got another 80 in there. We'll see if that goes all right. Put some power in again, and that looks better. The light's on. It's pretty dim. Got a little light down here. That's good. One light's working. It's warmed up. The dim bulb's still on fairly bright. It's only got 180 volts in there, 178. See if I can get anything. I don't think we will. There's not enough voltage. Oh, this is tight. No, there's nothing there. I'll see if I can bring it up a bit more on the Variac and get it up near 200. We might get something. I'll touch that. Nothing there. And there's nothing there. Okay. Just looking at the voltage on the grid on the output valve, and it's at 15.5. It is dropping down, but I'll turn it off. I'll get rid of that capacitor that's in there. I've changed the coupling capacitor, so we'll be able to put it on and should be able to leave it on. I'll put the power back on. We're still on dim bulb. I've connected, this is B plus now. So we seem to have B plus. Alright, it should have warmed up. I am getting noise through the speaker. I'll give it a bit more power. Our grid voltage is now 0, so that's okay. It's on full volume. Let's see what this is on.
I think that the respect for the Queen is probably the first point here. That was why she received such a warm welcome. You know, the Queen is 90, going on 96. This is hospital door. That's just.
No more meetings with bank managers, no reams of paperwork.
Okay, well it's working then. Okay, that was good. So I'll just go back to another talking station there.
Divine, because you do come along quite a little later than I usually I'm in the building, Kelly. So it's really nice to be able to sit here and see you and learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, let's full down on the volume, so it's still working.
Well, I'm having
I'll
a
just
chat.
tune that off a bit. That B plus looks a bit high. It should be more like 220, 230. I may have connected that to the rectifier output and not B plus. I just picked a pin on the speaker plug. Now we've still got 0 on the grid, so yeah, that's working all right. I'll change all the capacitors, of course I need to, and I've got to work out this dial mechanism, see if I can get that working properly. Give it a bit of a clean up, and I think we'll be good to go. I think I'll take this dial frame off. I don't want to damage it by putting my finger through it or something. And I want to set up the plastic disc too, so I can do that on the bench. To get it off, I think there's a screw there. There's 2 at the back, and there's a couple of screws between the frame and the tuning capacitor. So I'll undo those. And the one on the front. I'll take some lights out as well. And just take these 2 screws off the back and it should come off. Okay, that's come off as a complete assembly, so that's good. I can set that whole disc thing up. And I've also got better access to replace these grommets. The owner wants this left in its original condition, so I'll just take it out into the workshop and blow the dust off and just give it a bit of a clean up, and that's all I'm going to do. And there it is. All I did was clean it up with a wet rag and a bit of kitchen spray cleaner, a toothbrush and some compressed air. So that's all I'm going to do to it. I'm going to flip it over and start looking at the components I need to change. And as we saw before, there's an 8 microfarad there. There's 2 8 microfarads in there, which they're electrolytics. There's one here that's 8 microfarad. There's one here, and there's one down here. Bit hard to see, but it is in there, and I think that's an electrolytic as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 electrolytics. That sounded like the count on Sesame Street. 6 electrolytics. Anyway, now I've got one 8 microfarad there. There'll be another one. Oh, no, there'll be another one somewhere. There's a 10. That's the cathode bias. Another cathode bias, 10. There's one there. So what's that? 2. 3, 4. There's another one, 8 microfarad. What's that one? It's the plate of the detector, of the oscillator. There's another one there. So that's, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay. So the two 10 microfarad ones are only small, so I can use low voltage ones there. The other ones are all on high voltage lines, so yeah, they'll need to be high voltage ones. Now just having a look here, this is a bit unusual. They've got the detectors in the IF amplifying valve, and normally they put them in with this preamp valve here, but they've got it in there. And I'll see what I want to do with these cans. I do like restuffing these old ones with new and keeping it looking original. These ones have only got a very thin line of solder on one side here, so just unsolder that and you could flip it off. But then again, the replacements are pretty small, so you know, I could probably fit them in there without much trouble. I'll do all this first. I'll come back and decide what to do with those. I'm not going to show me doing all the capacitors. I just thought I'd show you taking these ones out and we'll just discover what they are. There's a big blob of solder here, so I'm going to use the big iron. This is a very popular earthing point, obviously. Alright. Now this one here is the first of the 8 microfarad capacitors, the smoothing cap, and it's taking the place of this one around here. Now that was changed prior to me getting the radio, and it's coming off this pin here, which is this is a speaker plug, and there's probably a wire which will go all the way back here somewhere. There's the rectifier. So that's okay. That's rated at 600 volts. I can replace that. Now these ones here I think should be 10. They are 10. They should only be a low voltage peak of 40. Okay, no problem. Now this one's coming off this pin here, so I'm assuming that's going to ground, so that's just some sort of bypass cap. 0.1 microfarad, and that'll be 400 volts. Okay, no worries, I got that. I have 4 of these 8 microfarad capacitors, so there's one there, there's 2 in this can here, and there's one up in the can up the top there, so that's 4, so that's correct. And there's 2 of these 10 microfarads, so that's all correct weight. So I'll just busy myself and replace these. I started replacing these caps. I check resistors as I go, and these are not very accurate, these ones. That's red, green and yellow, so that's 250k, and it's got 343. That one is 50k, and what have we got there? 52, that's not bad. This one is red, green, and I think that's orange, so that's 2, 5, orange is 25, should be 25k, 28, nearly 29. I'll check this one. This one's green, which is 5, black is 0, and then there's 4 for yellow. What is 500? And what do we got there? 0.6, so that should be 0.5. Now I'll check these two here. These are in parallel. So that's yellow, which is 4, black is 0, and 3 zeros, so 40. We got 30. There should be 20, so they're reading 30. Yeah, so it looks like I'm up for some resistors. Anyway, I'll get back to what I was doing. I'll just change the resistors as I go. It looks like this could be a big job. I suspected it was going to be a big job, and it was. I've replaced all the capacitors in here, this section here, all the resistors. I don't think there's any resistors left. These wire wound big ones here are fine, they were okay. There was a couple here I've left in, they were okay too. After I changed all this, I put the radio on to make sure it still worked, and it was working fine. I then changed this one, and there's one here somewhere. I think there's one in here and one down here. So that's what I did. I replaced 2 capacitors, that resistor. There's another capacitor here. I changed that. Here's the casualty list, and it's pretty extensive. There's quite a number of resistors. I think there's about 13 capacitors there, and of course there's still the 3 electrolytics which aren't in this pile. Now there's one minor problem I have. The radio doesn't work. So I've spent the last 2 hours trying to work out why it doesn't work. And naturally I assumed I'd put something in the wrong place, but I haven't. Everything is in exactly the right place. I went through the schematic and followed each wire. Everything is exactly right. I assume the problem is here somewhere. So I thought I'll get these 8 microfarad capacitors out and replace them with good ones. Then I can put full power on and I can test it properly. That didn't make any difference. It still doesn't work. So I'm at a loss. I've been staring at it for quite a while now and I don't know where to go. I thought I'd put the cameras on before I do a lot of testing so you can follow along. I've got the radio on and it's warmed up, it's running at full voltage, and this is what I've got. That's it, that's all it does. The volume's on full, we're on medium wave, that's okay. So what have I done? I don't get it. First thing I do is determine that the oscillator is working. So what I usually do is just scratch the antenna and there's nothing getting through. I can't hear anything, so that signal is not getting through to the amplifier. Now I've got my oscilloscope on and it's warmed up. I'll test the oscillator here. That's it there. And that seems to be working. Oh, there we go. Alright, so if I tune that, it should change, yeah. So the oscillator's working. I know the valve is correct. It's a good valve. I've changed it. I've tested it. It's the second valve in there now. I've tested both of them. They're fine. The voltages are all correct. The wiring is correct. The capacitive values are correct. I don't think the problem is in that valve. Now the fact that that's not getting through is that the antenna coil. I didn't touch the antenna coil. I can't see that would be it, but we can bypass it. This is the antenna coil in here. There's the antenna going into it, and that'll be a ground coming out. There's another wire here. I've already traced it, and it comes up here and it ends up here. This is the secondary out of the antenna coil there. So if I get the antenna wire and put it on there, we can bypass the primary on the antenna. I can hear music. I don't think you will be able to. I'll be quiet for a second. And I can tune it in and out. But it's very soft, so I don't think that's the issue. It should be much louder than that. I can put my finger on the grid of that mixer and it's making a noise. Now if I put my finger on this volume control, it should buzz. Alright, so I know this valve here and this valve here are working. That's the preamp and the amplifier. So the problem is between here. What I forgot to mention was I replaced all the valves. I put new ones in just to make sure that wasn't the fault, and it stayed exactly the same. So I can't imagine what I've done in changing a couple of capacitors that it stopped working. To clear my mind, I'll put on a couple of seconds of Think Music and Puppy Dogs. I think what I'll do, I'll put my signal generator on and we'll see if we can follow the signal. I've set my generator up. It's on 455, which is the IF frequency of this radio, and I'll connect it straight to the aerial. We'll blast it through. I've got a fairly high, what's that, 36, so that's pretty high, and there's nothing coming through. This is nuts. What's going on? I'll put that in here, we'll see if we get it. Oh, there it is. I'll just hold it on the grid of the mixer or the converter valve. Yeah, it's there. That's pretty much the same as putting it on there. The radio's upside down, of course. This is the grid of the IF amplifier, and there's nothing on my finger there. Oh, there you go. Hang on. So it's there. What do I know so far? I'm pretty confident that the antenna coil is okay, but I know I can put the signal in from the secondary and that does go through, but not very loud. So that's okay. I tested the oscillator, I know that's working, so that's okay as well. I also know if I put the signal directly into the grid of this IF amplifier valve, it gets through and comes out the speaker. I also know the voltage is getting through the IF can to the plate of the mixer. So knowing that, the problem has to be in the IF transformer. I'll turn the radio over. I'll just adjust those IF transformers and see if that fixes it. I'm running out of ideas. I've flipped the radio over. I have power on. I'll put that there and I'll connect the generator directly onto the valve. I'm not even going to put a capacitor in there or anything. Here's the two IF cans up the top. They use capacitors to adjust, not inductors, and I've slugged. This is the first IF in line, so I'll adjust it and see if we get anywhere. I haven't got a meter or anything on. Oh. I've turned the generator down to minimum now. We're still getting it. I've put the generator on the absolute minimum. If you're worried about me using a metal screwdriver and shorting it, I've got some heat shrink on there, so it won't short. Alright, this is the second transformer. I'll just check that one. That's out too. Oh no. I'll try the other one. I'll take the generator clip off here and I'll put it on the insulation so I can loosely couple it. Now that that's loosely coupled, I can adjust this pretty accurately. I've moved back to the first transformer here. I'll finish off this last one. Alright, I'll get this off and put the antenna on. I'll see if it works. I'll put the aerial back on. Right, I'll turn it up and see if we get anything. Oh, there it is.
Good on you, Leo. I think he lives in Australia now.
Aussie thinks belting out some of the greatest classic hits the world has ever heard. From the Easy Voice and Sky Force.
And she talks about it in the context of marriage because she and my dad was.
Yep, that's bonus back on all races at Rag.
So these cans must have been set just on the edge where they toppled over when I changed some components. That's all I can think of. I did change the valve, but it shouldn't affect the IF. I don't understand it. Anyway, it's working. I'll accept that. Now, what I showed you here was only a part of me troubleshooting this because I spent ages going over the circuit and, you know, buzzing things out and changing valves. So, you know, I spent an hour or so prior to even putting the cameras on and making sure everything was okay. Anyway, I'm happy it's working. I was getting quite frustrated there for a minute. I unsoldered and soldered a lot of things up again, just moving things around. So I'll clean all that up. I'll come back and we'll have a look at those 8 microfarad caps and what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to have a go at restuffing this capacitor. I think I'll take the top off. Yeah, the capacitor's loose in there, so I'll take the top off and should be able to just pull it out. I've clamped the little tin down so I can just pull on the top. Alright, here we go. Oops, setting fire to it. Taking more to heat up than I thought it would, so yeah, this may not work. Maybe I should have used a soldering iron. Anyway, it's out. Bits of paper in there. I'll cut the wires off. So I'm not sure why I get into so much trouble when I'm trying to melt solder. There we go. Alright, I'll clean that up and go and mount a capacitor on it. The other can cleaned up alright, so I'll do this one as well. It's only got 2 little areas along the sides here, so they should come off pretty easy. Oops. I flipped it over, so I'll move on to this one. Easy. Right, that should just pull out, I hope. And out the top as well. Maybe. There we go. Right. So that cleaned up. That's a bit cleaner than the other one. Okay, I'll take these inside and make some little capacitor packs. I'm ready to assemble these electrolytic cans. I've cleaned them out, so they're both nice and clean inside. And I've made up some new capacitors. I've used 10 microfarad. I didn't have 8s in that style. So there's 2 there and 1 here. I've also 3D printed some little holders for them, one for the single and one for the double. I also tested the 2 old capacitors I took out. They are not capacitors anymore. They had a resistance, but they weren't shorted. But yeah, they just don't work as capacitors. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with the single one. I've printed this little holder out, as I said. It has a vent hole in the bottom. The capacitor will fit in there. If it needs to vent, it can vent out the bottom there. And I think I'll just put a little bit of adhesive there just to hold it. So I'll use a bit of hot glue, because hot glue is good. You can just remelt it and easily pull those apart again. Now I didn't want that vent sitting right on the bottom there, because if it does vent, it'll go off like a Saturn V rocket. So I've made a little spacer here. This is press board, and this is heat proof and all the rest of it. Not that it would matter, but that should fit in there. Then this will go on top. There we go. Go right down there. The way that I've designed this little block is it's got relief on all four sides there, so if it does need to vent, it can vent out there. I'll put a little bit of hot glue in each corner, and that should hold the little block in place. Alright, that adhesive is set now, so I'll put the wires through here. And all I have to do now is just solder these up, and that one's finished. I'll do the other one. It'll be exactly the same procedure. I've already got a bit of board in the bottom there, and this will fit on top, and yeah, same procedure. Alright, I'll do that, and I'll come back and fit them into the radio. I'm going to refit the two cans. There's a screw from the top which I've got to try and hold. There we go. And I need to put a washer on there and a nut. So with a bit of luck this will stay here. And I have the nut captive in the socket, so just going to screw it on. So I'll go and refit the other screw and the other can, and then I've got to wire them up. I'll do all that, I'll come back, and we'll see how it works. I was almost going to fit this second capacitor when I remembered I needed to change the rubbers on the tuning capacitor. So I'll have to unsolder these earth points they've got on there so I can undo the screws. I have my big iron here. This should take them off in a few seconds. Yeah. Unfortunately, this one here's got solder in the slot for the screw. There it is. Good. So with a bit of luck, they should just screw out. Alright, these should just break off. Yeah, they're pretty hard. Alright, I'll put new ones in. I've got grommets here. I'll just use those instead. I'll come back when it's finished. This is what I've ended up with. It's got a grommet and a spacer, a rubber spacer. And here's the little spacer here. I've just punched them out with a hollow punch, so I'll sit that in there. Here's the screw with another spacer on that, so I'll just put that through the grommet. I can screw that down now, and that'll squish in there nicely and fill up all the gaps and give me the right height. There is a mail order place in America. I think it's a hardware style thing, and I've seen other Americans use it on their radio restores, and they've actually got the big fat grommets that you need. I don't know the name of the place, but you can actually buy those ones with a big square cross section on them. Alright, I'll finish installing this again and put that capacitor back, then we'll come back and have a look. I'm all done now. I've resoldered those wires onto the tuning capacitor attachment screws. I've refitted the other capacitor. I've wired them all in, so it all looks pretty good. And I've made up some little stickers here that say restuffed, and if it's on an angle. Now I've been hiding these underneath, and I shouldn't have. I should have made them so you could see them. So why I'm doing this is because my friend bought a radio he knew had been restored and the capacitors restuffed, and when he got the radio home, the new owner, the one he bought it off, had cut these wires and put new capacitors on the chassis somewhere. So now he's got to take those out and reconnect the ones that are in the cans here. I'm pretty much done under here. We'll flip it over, make sure it still works, and I'll move on to the next bit. Alright, it's the right way up now. I'll just turn it on. 240 volts. I've still got it on dim bulb. We'll just make sure. There it goes. It's on shortwave, I think. There we go. Everything looks normal. We'll go to full power. Got 240 volts, 45, 46 watts. Looks good.
In time, which isn't very often.
What, in the morning?
Yeah, we always used to dance around in the morning, set the mood for the...
Actually, later, I got into it.
Dream runner, civil about.
Alright, so that's working fine. It is working alright, but what I have noticed is that it lacks volume.
Hydrological study.
That's full volume, and it's not very loud at all. The main suspect would be this 42 output valve. I'll put it on the valve tester. I have my old Palak valve tester here. It's the only one I've got with this base on it. I have all the switches set correctly, so it should be on Merit 3. This is supposed to be 33, that's okay, and we'll test it. Yeah, not very good. Okay. I rummaged around in all my valves. I didn't have this one catalogued, and this was just in a box, so it's new old stock. I'll give that a go. I've let it warm up for about 2 or 3 minutes. We'll see what that one's much better. Alright, I'll put that in. Okay, new valve's in. I'll put some power on it. It should have warmed up. There it is.
In our submissions to the International Olympic Committee, and I'm very pleased.
Yeah, so that's better, much better. All right, that's pretty much the electronics sorted, so I'm going to move on to that little plastic dial. We'll see if I can set that up. But I'm going to do that next week. This video's run for about 1 hour and 20 minutes, so I've cut it in half. I'll put it out over 2 weeks, so I'll finish it off next week. I'm going to do a new dial glass, which is a bit of fun, and I'm going to install a new Bluetooth module. It's quite an innovation. It was designed by another YouTuber, which most of you would know, and I'm going to build it and try and install it in this radio. I hope you can join me next week for part 2 of my Healing 448 radio adventure. In the last video I posted, I repaired this little Philco transistor. I took the case around to Trevor, the leather guy near me, and he was going to re-stitch the top. The stitching had come apart top and bottom, and he was going to re-stitch it for me. I was hopeful to get it back before the video went out, but I didn't make it. So I've got the case back now. Now in other videos where I've had leather repaired, people have said they wouldn't mind seeing what he does. So he said when I dropped it off, he would tell me and let me video it while he did it. Now that's what I'm going to show now. It started off as any normal day. Hi Trev, what's happening? You don't say. You don't say. You don't say. Thanks Trev, I'll come around.
What did Trev want, dear?
He didn't say. Trevor said he had started stitching the case, so I hightailed it around to his shop and caught him just as he was starting to do the top end of the case.
Okay, so what we're doing here is just thinning the thread out really, so that it goes through the eye of the needle.
Looks like it made it harder.
Yeah. Bit of beeswax.
Oh, okay.
The main reason I wax it is just to pull the thread back down so it's nice and tight.
Yep.
So when I thread the needle, it stays in shape. And to thread the needle, a little bit of a trick to it. Go back through the thread a few times, 3 or 4 times is enough. Okay, then we thread it.
Trevor's got one length of thread and he's got a needle tied to both ends.
Through the eye.
Yeah. So he's going to have the thread running in 2 directions for one stitch. And pull it tight.
And locks the thread onto the...
Yeah, right.
There's just like an extra hand.
He's just getting the clamp to hold the job. I think it's called a pony clamp.
All these clamps are doing is just holding the job.
Yep. Yeah.
This part's a bit tricky that you don't go back through the thread with the other needle. So just do this one slowly like this. Then it loops over on the other side, it forms a knot.
Alright.
Once again, we don't want to go too tight, or we'll just cut this old lever.
Yeah.
Make a bit of a hole with this one. Should I say open the hole back up?
Yeah. He's putting a needle through first just to open the hole, then he'll take it out and thread the other needle through. So it's going back in the same hole, isn't it?
Yeah, going
Just
back through the same hole.
twice, yeah.
Like so, then that gets wrapped around, which
Yep.
forms a knot.
Okay.
That's a stitch.
Right.
Okay, normally you'd be using an awl,
Yeah. Yeah.
like so, to make a hole.
Yep.
But it's such a delicate job, I'm just using the needle as an awl.
Yep.
And the hole's already there anyhow, so just to open it back up a bit. They don't often do it like this anymore because of the difficulty in it.
Yep. Well, they just do it. How would they do it now?
They just fold and machine it.
Okay.
Make the lever a little bit longer and machine it, and then just trim it back.
All right. Yeah, you can't do that now.
Nah,
Not the trim.
nah. That's what makes it so special, you know.
Yeah.
Even factory, when this was factory made, they would have done it by the thousands.
Yeah.
There we go. I've just gone back through the thread.
Through the same thread.
Yeah. So what we'll have to do here is we'll have to pull that needle back through, if we can. Yeah, when they were making them in the factory years ago, that, you know, making heaps of them at the same time, they were about a heap of people sitting around sewing it, just like
Really?
how I am. Yeah. There's no way you can machine stitch this. Okay, so we'll fix that thread. The idea, they reckon, is as you're pushing your needle through, is to grab the other thread and just make sure you're not.
Clear. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been hand sewn.
Oh, gosh. This an apprenticeship for this sort of
Yeah.
job?
Mm. Part of my apprenticeship, I'm a saddle and harness maker by trade.
Yeah.
And part of my apprenticeship was 6 weeks. Each procedure in manufacture, you'd have to spend 6 weeks on that job. So you'd be hand stitching for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Selling bridles and stuff like that, your hands definitely pay the price.
Yeah, I bet.
Over the years, people tried different ways to stop the fingers. What happens is, in your crease of your finger here, from pulling the thread tight all the time, it just cuts down to your bone.
Huh.
For years, everyone's always trying to come up with a way to stop it, but whatever you've done just gets in the road of your stitching, slows you down. And that was the thing about this trade, is that you've got to be fast.
Yes. Yeah.
We had to be to do the saddlery work. Something like this, you can't be fast, otherwise you just fuck up.
Now, Trevor does a lot of work for motorcycle riders, so a couple showed up and just talked over the rest of the video. I can't show that. He's finished stitching around. He's finishing off the end here. He's just going to tie a knot and the job will be complete. Trevor then soaked the case in a leather rejuvenating compound. He put it in a yellow bag. He said throw it on the back lawn and let it sit in the sun for half an hour. Then take it out, dry it out and give it a polish. And here it is in its case, and it's looking good. Trev's done a really good job of that. Very happy with that. It has a little cardboard stiffener in there. I need to cut a new one up that's a bit stiffer, and then I'll glue that down. That'll pull that down. But the radio works very well. Very happy with it. Very happy. So thanks, Trev, and I'll put this little radio back on the shelf again. So I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of what Trevor does in his little shop there. And I hope you can join me for my next leather case adventure.